All right, now I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9:14. I'm going to use the gavel. And I just want to thank everyone for waiting with us while we dealt with some technical difficulties. And I appreciate everyone for their service on the commission, as well as the leadership team for the transition support and the orientation that we had. I do want to let people know that Commissioner Anna was able to attend the recognition event. So I just want to say thank you to that. And kudos to bus operator for reaching 50 years of service, and another one for reaching 52 years without a preventable accident. So I want to start off by thanking the work, the staff for that. Moving on to completion and acceptance of agenda. Any requests to change or edit? Oh, and I did have one other note is the mayor is unable to attend to today's meeting just because last night he had to spend the overnight in the ER with a sick child, and the child is fine, but he has to spend today at home with the child. So he is unable to be here, but had wanted to attend. So we will send them good thoughts as the child recovers. And moving on to completion of agenda. So any requests to change or add to the agenda? Yes, Ms. Robin?
No, thank you. No, I will move the agenda. The one thing I'm asking though is, if people might consider for the staff reports, later on in the agenda to signal which ones they want to discuss versus going through each one independently. I think it would just be from a time saving perspective allow us to move through those things.
Helpful? It doesn't bother me. I don't know.
To treat them like rather than just pull the things that we want to discuss.
Excellent, Commissioner Trassa.
Yes, I think at least in the initial stages of our becoming familiar with this, I would rather not do that. I would like to have the opportunity to at least hear a little bit about each one. And if people need to leave, they can leave, but I'm not in a hurry to get out of here.
So it's not in a hurry, it's just in terms of focusing on the issues that we need to focus on. Like we can all read an agenda, and we can understand information that's provided to us. So this is just a way for us to move through information in a way that's expedient, but also to make sure that we hit the high notes and get the information that we need. But I'm happy if we just consider it for future meetings.
Sure. How about for this meeting, just because I had them separated out, as staff prepare a short one blurb on them. For this meeting, we'll go through as usual, but for next meeting, I'd be happy to try and format it, listen to a consent process. Yes.
Yes. In any event, I have quite a few questions on 8 and 15, and I would not feel comfortable approving 8 until I had some of the things on 15 done, and I'm wondering if on future agendas it would be possible to put similar things together. For example, specialized services, because I do see some issues between 8 and 15, and I'm not sure how to deal with that procedure.
Would you like to move 15 up to before 8?
Yeah, or together, that would be ideal in my view.
We can move 15 up to before 8, so that would be a change to the agenda. So would you like to move that change?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Is there a second there? Seconded by Commissioner Floza. Any discussion? And all in favor? And that carries. Okay, so 15 will be before 8. Any other changes to the agenda? Yes, Commissioner Floza.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just I guess an FYI, I'm having the same issue. My agenda was up and working digitally. It is now not connected to the internet, though I am on the internet. So I'll just huddle and share, just that there's still some tech issues. So
Is staff still working on that? I thought yes. They are still working on it. Staff is still working on that. And if you need, I have the agenda. If you,
I'll just snap it.
Wonderful. I'm gonna
pull these out.
Staff will work on some printed copies. All right, so any other comments on the agenda? No? Okay, then we have a mover for the amended agenda. Moved by Commissioner Hopkins, seconded by Commissioner Lehman. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, so any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I will be disclosing one for staff report item number 9. I chatted with the integrity commissioner, and given that my partner works at the Thames Valley District School Board, I have a deemed interest on items related to school board issues. So given that there's a report on a field trip in that one, I'll be turning over the chair to Commissioner Rahman. Any other disclosures? None. Okay, moving to approval of minutes for meeting held on April 16. Any comments on the minutes? Okay, can I get a mover for those minutes? Moved by Commissioner Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa, and all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, moving on to appointments. So we have two different appointment bodies that we'll be looking for members to sit on. So first being two positions for Western Fair Association, and second being for the Accessible Public Transit Services Advisory Committee. So we'll be holding a vote for those. First up is Western Fair Association, and the secretary will be reporting that. Yes, Commissioner Pelosi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move your name and my name. We already serve on the Western Fair. We've already had the onboarding, training, key cards issued, realizing that the intention isn't to be here for the rest of the term of council, that it might just be expedient that we're already up to speed and take on that workload with the commission teams.
I would be happy to serve, so I'd accept the nomination. Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate anyone for that? Any discussion? Okay, all right, so then we'll just get a motion to approve those two appointments, moved by Commissioner Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins.
So Madam Chair, did you second that since I moved it?
Yeah. And all in favor? And then opposed, that carries. And then moving on to appointments for the Accessible Public Transit Services Advisory Committee, we need one. Anyone like to nominate anyone? Yes, Commissioner Pelosi.
I believe Councilor Troutz or Commissioner Troutz showed interest last time. If he's still willing to stand, I will move this.
Seconded by Commissioner Rahman, and I saw a yes. So anyone else would like to nominate anyone? No? All right, so then I will call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? That carries. Thank you, Commissioner Trossap, for serving. All right, now we're moving on to presentations and delegations. We have two. The first being from KPMG, the auditors, so presenting the draft auditor's report. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Gregor to introduce these.
Thank you. Staff report number one pertaining to the recently completed audit for the main audit for the London Transit Commission, noting that the audit for the pension plan is still ongoing. Katie Denbach and Daniel Navani are here from KPMG. They're going to introduce the report and speak to their findings. And after the presentation, you will be asked to approve the draft financial statements and audit findings report as referenced in Exhibit 1.
Thank you. So I'll pass it over to folks.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here this morning. We wanted to walk the commissioners through the highlights of our audit findings report for the audit of the financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2024. And for those of you who maybe haven't seen this type of report before, it's sort of the end product of a lot of hours that go into the audit of the organization. It's our way of communicating with you anything we're required to communicate under Canadian auditing standards, as well as anything we think you should be aware of. Whether it be other types of information we're seeing discussed at board or committee levels, or just good knowledge for you to have in your oversight role over the external audit process. So I'm going to start on page 4 of our report. So the bottom right hand corner has the page numbers in it. Daniel's going to go through some of the details briefly with you shortly, but the one piece I wanted to point out here was our level of materiality. So that's the highest level threshold we use when we scope our work. It helps us decide where there might be risks of material misstatements within the financial statements. And we perform our procedures over those areas accordingly. So materiality for the Transit Commission has been set at 4.3 million for this year. The more important number for you as commissioners is what we call our audit misstatement posting threshold, which is 215,000. That's the level at which, if we identify any corrected or uncorrected audit adjustments, we would bring them forward to you. Page 5 of our report just goes over some ways that we use technology in the audit. The reason we highlight that is because it is changing each and every year. Technology is being used more and more in the audit, helps us rely more on large data sets as opposed to substantive sampling. So we're integrating technology throughout the audit, just making you aware of it. You will see continuous updates on that as things change going forward. On slide 6, in terms of status, we have completed our audit. So the only items that really remain outstanding at this point in time are having our conversations with you here this morning, obtaining evidence of the approval of the financial statements. And then we also send a management representation letter to be signed once the financial statements have been approved. So those are all sort of first matters at this point in time.
Thank you, Julie. I will take it from here. Thank you for having us today. So I'll start on page 7. On page 7, we have included our risk from management override controls. This risk is not rebutted and is a presumed risk for all entities under Canadian auditing standards. This risk is consistent with the prior years, and we have performed procedures to address it. And as a result of the procedures we have performed, no issues were identified. On page 8, we have outlined here the really significant accounting standards that were effective and applied for the current year, whether they were applicable for LTC. The only new standard that had transactions to consider was the PS 3400 revenue standard. We have reviewed amount prepared by management, outlining the impact of revenue streams, and concluded that there were no impact or additional adjustments required as a result of adopting this new standard. All the required disclosures related to the new standards are included in the financial statements, and we also note that there were no revised accounting policies in the current year. On page 9, we confirm that the form, content, and arrangement of the financial statements are adequate, and we have no concerns regarding the future accounting policies. On page 10, we like to confirm that there were no statements that were corrected or uncorrected that were identified during this year's audit. On page 11, this outlines details and definitions of control deficiencies, and we did not note any control deficiencies this year. On page 12, this highlights the audit quality and how we perform it. And on page 13, we'd like to confirm our independence of the commission. And I'll hand it back to you to go over that.
Yeah, so the rest of the report is our appendices. There is a copy of the draft financial statements in there, and you can see a copy of our auditor's report included as well. I always like to say, even though it's 3 pages long, this is our standard auditor's report. So we anticipate being able to issue a clean or an unmodified audit opinion on the financial statements of the commission. And those have been included there for you. I'm not going to touch on the rest of the appendices other than to point out that there is some information for you. There is some live links contained within those appendices on a variety of topics that may be of interest to you. But I will go through those in detail. They're not really directly related to the we did. So with that, we're happy to take questions if anyone has.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. So any questions from commissioners? Charlie?
Thank you, through Chair. Just one question is, when I looked at significant risk, and you touched on that risk of material misstatement due to fraud resulting from management override of controls. That is always going to be a significant risk, for my understanding. And you said you haven't identified any concern there. Well, I guess my question is, are there safeguards that we can do or implement to prevent future identifying concern, right? What are things that we're doing? Are we doing pretty much everything we can as far as accounting standards?
A good question, and through you, Madam Chair. So you're correct. This is a risk that we have to consider significant for every single audit. So nothing specific to the Transit Commission. The areas that we tend to focus on when we think about where management in any organization may have the opportunity to override the controls largely rests in looking at appropriate journal entries. So our focus tends to be on the review and approval controls in place. So for journal entries, I think there has been some improvements and some suggestions made in years prior that have been improved already with respect to the journal entry review and approval process. The other areas, anywhere where there are significant estimates within the financial statements, there really aren't too many significant estimates within LTC's financial statements, and the ones that are bigger, for example, employee future benefits, those are performed with the assistance of an actuary, an external actuary. So there was not a huge risk area there. So those tend to be sort of the big areas of focus, and then any significant unusual transactions. So I would say making sure that you've got proper levels of review and approval in place in those three specific areas is all you can really do to address that.
Future. So I just want to confirm that in your professional opinion, we have the necessary safeguards to address potential this significant risk.
Through our procedures.
Thank you. Any other questions? So the actual report that we'll be approving is under staff report, so we don't have a motion for this one. We don't need a motion. Part of it. Wonderful. All right, well, thank you very much. So I think you guys are good unless, I don't know if you want to stick around for this part. Draft auditors report on the staff report side.
No, that's it. That's what you're doing right now.
Oh, I'm
You're actually approving
Oh,
number
okay.
one.
Great, I'm gonna move that up there. Okay. All right, so then maybe do stick around in case we go into this discussion. So,
What we could do, so if you have a check is, have a mover and a secretary to receive the motion.
yeah. Now. Okay, I was confused because I thought there was something down. Yeah, no problem. All right, then I'll look for mover and a seconder for the recommendation for under item number 1, draft auditor's report. Moved by Commissioner Ron, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins. Any discussion on the report itself? No? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Okay. All right, then I'll move back up then to item number 2. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate your work. Item number 2, so Budget Chair Pelosa, I don't know if you would consider sitting at the front, because we're doing your stuff. Okay, what do you, just for wearing the different hats. So, we have a presentation for Budget Chair Pelosa regarding 2026 budget. You can see communication number 1 related to that. I will pass it over to Budget Chair Pelosa for comments. Recognizing the mayor was here, but since it's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And at this moment, Counselor versus Commissioner. Once again, the mayor sends his regrets. Some of you have already received me in the same context at different boards, realizing every agency, board, and commission in the city is different with different partnership agreements with the city and different services to delivering. The correspondence attached, you would have seen the mayor's desire to bring the tax rate down, looking at opportunities for joint advocacy, increased revenue generation. There's opportunity to push off some costs, joint procurement, and across different organizations with their different facets and needs. It's just a little bit different here, that seat versus here. The committee, it did not get circulated in advance. I apologize for that. The mayor has seen it. The wording is with the committee commissioner, secretary. If you wish to read it out, or I could read it out, realizing at this moment you'll have your separate discussion. Also, I'll highlight as we move through this that right now we're commissioners. As we move back into council, for councilors, different hats at different times, but quorum would always be in place. And realizing there's so many of us on this commission, just being mindful of when budget time comes of what we've had here versus there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to take any questions or concerns, realizing as budget chair, I'll say we meet mid-May. And then again in June, and then again, there's usually a summer, a little bit of summer break will start in the fall. The mayor's always happy and council to receive any information at any time. We'll start to see some agency boards and commissions have correspondence on the May docket. Many are meeting in June, realizing the mayor and I were actually scheduled to come to the commission prior to dissolvement of the prior board. So this one actually is the last board to have our delegation and request. So inherently, yours will come in a little bit later after others people's, which is quite understandable. So most boards are just passing it that at the next board meeting that they sit at, staff will bring back something as per the parameters, for consideration and discussion as we move through this process.
Any questions for Budget Chair? Yes, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, Madam Chair, maybe not so much a question. First of all, thanks for the presentation. Really appreciated the comment around a joint advocacy. I think that is something we have LTC staff here on how we can do a better job working together and supporting one another. Looking forward to hearing more from the LTC staff on how we can go forward with that. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And then, suppose then if you're done there, I'll ask you to return to your commissioner seat. Since we have no further questions or comments. Yes, yeah. Wonderful. So any debate or discussion on the request from Mayor Morgan and Budget Chair Rosa?
I feel more comfortable if it was read out, was circulated, and a commissioner that's not me or the mayor could make a decision if they're happy and move it, just trying to keep it the coverage.
Okay, wonderful. So then, would you mind reading it?
Happy to read it. So the motion is to receive the delegation. It's A. B is request that commission staff bring forward a report for the June London Transit Commission meeting in order to meet the August budget deadlines, outlining the following. Small I, opportunities for savings for 2026 budget. 2 small i's, items for joint advocacy with the City of London. 3, opportunities for group procurement. 4, ideas for revenue generation. 5, opportunities for delayed capital planning. And C, that commission staff continue to work with civic administration to find appropriate assessment of growth and ask to be submitted at the next available opportunity.
Would like to do that? On the floor. Moved by Commissioner Roman, seconded by Commissioner Lehman. Any discussion on those items? Commissioner Roman?
Thank you. So I'm supportive of that request. I just wanted to, through you, ask staff if they're able to provide feedback on the timeline.
Through the chair, we can certainly bring something back. My understanding of that is bring back discussion points for the commission. So, and then obviously whatever direction comes from the June meeting, we would still have time to incorporate it into the budget that would be presented in August. So that timing works.
Yes, so the only other thing that struck me when I was reading the letter was also whether or not we considered any possibility for any further joint services or joint agreements on anything that we're doing at the city that we're also doing here, and whether there's opportunity for some feedback on that. Excuse me, I was thinking about, from a communications perspective, the work that we're collaborating on right now as we roll out BRT and how that looks going forward as well. If that will look similar, that will continue with that joint messaging, because I think it's actually been quite strong. And I think that it's getting a good uptake from the community. I'd love to see some feedback, and hopefully that's something we could include, is to get that feedback on how that joint rollout is going. But I see a lot of value in that for the city and.
Would you like to add anything into the motion to highlight
I don't want to add anything because I know that at this time, that's probably a lot of work to bring back for June, but I think it's for future consideration perhaps, and maybe a more detailed conversation in the future around how we can look at better ways to collaborate on these.
And thank you. Any other questions or comments, discussion on the motion? Commissioner Blossom?
Thank you, hoping that when it comes back, joint advocacy absolutely in funding for fair, adequate public transit funding. Appreciate the conversations for joint communications, especially around bus rapid transit, as I take care of one side well and Gateway. There's a lot going on right now. Also, anything that we might expect to see for any potential gas tax savings, as that could be an impact. I'm not looking personally for any potential savings that aren't actually savings, that's really from a cut to reduction of service hours, that's not my intention or scope of what I'm personally looking for. I'm not going to scale back ridership and services. And interested to see, I know there's always unions involved, but having heard the last meeting with the shortage of mechanics in the city, hired them on, but it leaves a gap, and then we're trying to find the space, different people to serve those contracts to keep our buses on the road. Of if there's any joint opportunities of how to have staff go back and forth from different departments, realizing the city uses mechanic services in different areas. I'm not sure if that's already been looked at. It might not even be might be a no-go area, which is fine, but just if there's a way to encourage people to just stay within our network of our employees.
Yeah, perhaps, I don't know, staff could take the liberty of interpreting group procurement to also look at. It's kind of in the same vein of sharing services, if there's opportunities, you guys. Can think about. Yeah, okay. If not, then further discussion, maybe it's more targeted discussion.
I'll also highlight too that some boards have taken it that they'll also use this as an opportunity to look at places that they did look, like a capital plan, be like, no, RFPs are issued, we're going there. We looked at it, it's not recommended. So that's completely within the realm too. If some things are coming back, I'll just highlight, or some people are saying like, hey, we've got this money, we've done this, we're going this, we're doing really good work. And that's why we're not recommending to scale something back, that those are all completely places are
Wonderful, thanks.
sorry, articulate that.
You got it. We know what you're saying. Any other comments? Question, yes, Commissioner Ler.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Ms. Pellegrini. We heard today about significant cutbacks at Fanshawe. I know that both Western and Fanshawe are significant users of LTC. Those cutbacks primarily at Cleveland staff, but obviously with the changes to foreign students, enrollment will be down significantly. Is that material enough to include a review of that effect on services in that part of the city to include into this type of presentation?
Through the chair, part of our annual budget process looks at those things every year because they have been subject to fluctuation. And we have talked in previous years about, the growing the growing base at Fanshawe, and the fact that students were spreading out and living further and further away from campus, which was putting pressure on routes that we've not historically seen pressure on. Unfortunately, the hours that we had, we weren't able to address those issues anyway. So part of that assessment that we'll look at going forward is, will we see now with fewer students, the ability for them to continue to live closer to campus where we already have a good level of service that would be able to accommodate them. So that is something that we look at every year. I did ask Mike to do some quick math this morning, just in terms of the article in the Free Press. And again, we haven't talked specifically with Fanshawe about what their expectations are, but if we look at that estimated 30% decline in students, that's about a $1.8 million hit to us in revenue. So that is a significant amount of revenue that we will be potentially out going forward. So.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up through the chair to Ms. Pellegrini about how how does that work, the student fare? So you said there's gonna be a hit. You could just speak
Sure,
to that
so
a
the-
little bit more on how it works.
Certainly, through the chair. So the tuition pass program, every full-time student at any participating institution, so we've got Fanshawe, we've got the Western undergrads, and then we've got the Western graduate students. So there's 3 separate contracts, but they're essentially all the same. Every full-time student is assessed an annual fee, which gives them 12 months of unlimited access to transit. And that's do you know the number off the top of your head? It's $285 is what it was this past September. That is subject to an annual escalation, which is part of the contract. That's a combination of a 1% automatic increase that helps us add service if required, and then CPI as well, and it's capped at 5% a year. So those rates do go up every year, notwithstanding the fact that in many years we don't increase our transit fares to the general public. Those fares continue to go up every year. So it's a very quick math for us. We just look at the number of students and multiply that by that annual fee, and we can quickly identify what that potential loss in revenue is. But like I said, we have not had discussions with Fanshawe, whether that's a phase thing that we could see maybe, happening over the next 2 to 3 years, or whether it's expected that it will be a hit effective, fall of 2025 going into 2026. So we will have those discussions obviously prior to bringing the budget forward to the commission, and we'll have a much better handle on those numbers.
Can I follow up?
Yeah,
I might just caution folks, I'm hoping to kind of stick to more of this motion, and then if we're discussing both budget stuff, there are some reports on budget stuff, so if you want to chat more about that, I'll let it go for now, but maybe let's not get too deep into a long
Yeah.
discussion of next year's budget.
I appreciate that, and thank you for reminding me not to go too far into the weeds. But is there any other kind of funding that supports LTC through that process?
Through the tuition pass?
Mhm.
No. So we use provincial gas tax to offset our operating costs, but that's just that's a carte blanche across, it's an offset to operating expenditures that brings down the share that we look to the city for, but there's nothing directly tied to the tuition pass program. That's a provincial fund.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the motion at hand? If folks are okay with me making a quick comment, I'm happy to support this. I think it's always good for us to be looking for savings wherever possible. At the same time, I align with Commissioner Plaza. I'm not interested in seeing major service cuts to existing routes. I don't think that we need to be impacting our ridership at this point, given that there might be other budgetary pressures. So I look forward to seeing what items we have at the next meeting to discuss, but I just wanted to highlight that's not necessarily the area that I'm looking for reductions in. Okay, anyone else on this motion? We haven't moved and seconded, we've had some discussion. More questions? All right, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? Carries. All right, next we're on to communication. So we'll just note and file this letter, given that we just had the debate regarding this. So I'll need to move in secondary to note and file the letter from the mayor and budget chair. Moved by Commissioner Hopkins, second by Commissioner Robin. Any discussion on that? No, all in favor? And any opposed? That carries. And next, a letter from myself, so actually I will be turning the chair over to Vice Chair Robin, as I did submit a letter to the agenda. So I'll pass it on to you regarding the governance.
Thank you. I have the chair. Would you like to speak to your letter?
Sure, yes. So this letter is in regards to figuring out next steps for our governance model. As we know at council, we did discuss having an interim commission made up of councillors, but didn't really outline the next steps forward. And this hopefully will be done in the next couple of months, because if we are looking to post, it does take a couple months for the clerk's office to make that happen. So I do want to move that along, and I'd like to actually thank Vice Chair Robin for suggesting that subcommittee. I think that's an excellent idea, just because I do think it'll take a little bit of time for folks to come to those deliberations and not doing it at a commission meeting where it might take too long for regular business. So that's generally the sentiment. I'm looking for 3 members so that we are in your quorum, and essentially having them meet in the next month and then report back for June to bring a motion to the commission.
Thank you. would you like to move your letter as well? Okay, so I've been mover, looking for a seconder on this letter and then discussion. with Councilor. So I guess we'll entertain the 3 members as well, if that's sufficient with the committee, but we'll deal with the letter for approval after we entertain the 3 members. So I would be looking for members willing to serve on the subcommittee. Don't put your hands up all at once. I'll put my hand up as well. To serve. Since the mayor isn't here, we could assume his hand is up, or I think I've gotten in trouble for that already. So. But yes, anyone else interested in serving on the subcommittee?
I will serve as well.
Okay,
There's no one's interested.
thank you. We need one more person.
I was gonna nominate you.
I was, yeah, I was gonna nominate you.
I nominate Anna Hopkins.
So my challenge is going to be, I've got a busy, month. I'm on board with that. State board meeting and other committee meetings. And I assume the timeline is going to be to have this information at our next meeting, which would be June 23rd. And it's going to be tight for me, but I think it's important that we do something, but I'm just not exactly sure which time I can commit right now.
Yeah. Are you comfortable with just putting forward 2 names to move forward the subcommittee?
Didn't get that.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, so we have 3 potential names, or we have 3 names put forward, and I'm going to close the nominations at this point for the subcommittee. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the 3 names put forward. Councilor Lehman? Seconder? Thank you. Sorry, Commissioner Lehman, Commissioner, recognize that. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And then I'll look for any other conversation on the letter, discussion on the letter. Okay, Councilor Johnson, or Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, why don't we just adopt the protocol where if we say council, we get understood. But in any event, I wanted to thank you for putting this forward because that was a whole. I mean, we could have spent a lot of time at council adding this in, and I think it was wise for us not to do that. And I'm really glad that you both came back so quickly with this. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that you'll be able to solve this in one meeting. Now that we've got a 3rd reluctant member of the committee, I want to say that this might be a little bit more work than that. And I guess my question would be, how do we engage the public on this particular question? Because when we made the move to alter the composition of the board, there were a variety of I think very legitimate questions from the public, and I know that folks are able to come forward and seek delegation status within a very, very slight window, which I'll address after the next item. But how would you do that? Or I don't want to put you in the spot, but should there be something in the motion that talks to the importance of that? And if not, I'll leave it to the 3 of you to figure it out, but I do think it's important.
Thank you. So I think at this time, the subcommittee work would be to bring back the report in June. So in terms of feedback, it could come into the meeting. And like you, I also have some thoughts about how to improve that timing cycle so that we could give a bit a larger window for some public engagement. But that could be the process through the next meeting, is receive that report, hear any delegations or receive any letters. And then from there, we'll entertain what's in the report and the engagement that's taken place.
If I could, yeah. I also am hoping, so that would then come to the June commission. Whatever we decide June commission would then get forward to SPPC, which would then get sent to council. So I think the public will have many opportunities through that to provide input on how they want to see this rolling out.
Let council worry about it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you. So with that, discussion on the letter. Okay, we had a mover and a seconder, so I'll vote. All in favor? That carries. And I'll return the chair to you.
Thank you. All right, so now we are moving on to staff reports. We've already addressed, oh yes, and the Wi-Fi / website stuff now you're working, we're gonna try. And hopefully it is, otherwise carry on your phones. So then we're going to staff reports. We've already developed this one. Okay, excellent. Then moving on to item 2, 2025 commission meeting dates. Can I get a mover and seconder for the recommendation to get on the floor? Moved by Commissioner Robbins, second by Commissioner Hopkins. Any comments on the meeting dates? Yes, Commissioner Tressa?
I anticipate that we're really going to need the meeting in July. And in fact, we're putting a lot of things on our June agenda, and I'm wondering if other people share my view, in which case we could take meeting only if required off, just so the public knows that that's going to be a regular meeting, or is that premature? I'll leave it to the chair to think
I
about
think
that.
at this point, I haven't seen what is supposed to be on the July agenda from the staff side, so I'm not sure how well it will be. Like I anticipate as well, we will probably need it, but I also don't want to presumptively assume it now. And then we come to July and have one item on the agenda. So I don't know if the staff, do you know if there's any?
So we build our work plan around not having a July meeting because we've traditionally never had a July meeting. So from our perspective, we don't have anything planned to come in July. Now, depending on what comes out of a June meeting, and that's why we did it this way. If there are directions out of the June meeting that indicate we need to come back in July, then we could certainly make that happen, but we don't have anything planned that needs to come in July.
So hearing that, I mean, I personally am comfortable with leaving it as optional, and if we do have something come in the June meeting for sure, then we can call it then. I just don't want to take it in the summer away from them.
Well, yeah, although at the same time, it's recognized that this is going to be a commission of limited duration. So I just think, I know for my planning, I'm gonna put this on my calendar, and I'm not going to get too upset if it cuts into my summer. But I know that we're gonna be having the first meeting of our accessibility advisory committee soon. And I'm hoping that committee will be prepared, if not by the June meeting, shortly thereafter, to come forward with some recommendations. I think that there's some urgent issues that they need to deal with. So I'm happy to leave it the way it is, but I don't want to feel as if I'm imposing on anybody if I come in later and say I really think we need a July meeting.
Yes, and if we have items for July, I won't hesitate to call it, so rest assured, I have heard you. Yes, Commissioner Plaza?
I'll note that all the dates potential or not are held in the council calendar. So.
Okay, are not or are.
Yeah, sure.
Great, I know some in mind, but I wasn't sure.
Still says hold, so maybe our staff needs to fix it, and confirm, but we're there.
Okay, any other debate on the meeting dates? Seeing none, how about you in second, so all in favor? Any opposed, that carries. And then now we want to commission meeting protocols. I have heard some discussion around potentially some changes to that. So I'm not sure if you want to discuss that first and then my sort of move it to it. Any?
Well, without making a motion, I just want to express a concern that there be ample time, not only for commissioners to thoroughly review the agenda, as we would always do, but also to have the agenda posted well enough in advance so that if a commissioner or a member of the public wanted to file an added agenda item with respect to an item that's on the agenda, they would have the opportunity to do that. And as I'm reading the what's before us right now, there might be one day. And that assumes that everything happens on time. So I wouldn't mind leaving a little bit more opportunity for that. What complicates this is that we're meeting on different days. So it should always specify calendar day. When there are deadlines, it should always say business day or calendar day. It should never say day, because then there's a question of interpretation as to whether it's a calendar day or a business day. And if we're having meetings on Monday, it's really important that that happen. So I think this might need a little bit more work, but maybe somebody else is further along in terms of what that language could look like. And I want to turn my mic off, but we don't.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see Commissioner Roman, my thoughts and I did.
Yeah, so building off of that, I think that I would like to see the agenda delivered 5 business days or 5 calendar days, sorry, in advance, if that's possible. Just to give us some additional time with the material. I will note now that I will need it sent to me just to have it in front of me as well. And then the only other piece that I wanted to ask about was how we contemplate virtual meetings as well, if that's a possibility for any of us to join virtually, if we end up leaving a July meeting and some aren't able to join in person because they're.
Yeah, so maybe perhaps on the first comment regarding 5 calendar days, is that fine staff? And then that would push the agenda deadlines to 7 days. Yes, wonderful. So we'll just make a note of that and then work that into the motion. And then regarding virtual hybrid.
Through the chair. So we do have the ability through the OWL and the Zoom. Unfortunately, today we had a couple of sick calls with IT when we were scrambling last minute, but we do have that ability to make it virtual. So that is possible.
Yeah, great. And do you want that written?
Does it need to be clarified? Do you think within the commission meeting protocols?
We can add it in. It's not a problem.
I do have it added in the health units. Yeah, no, just one blurb saying commissioners are able to attend in person or virtually.
Could you remind it?
Sure.
Yeah, we can have that. So those are 2 items. So 5 and 7 days, the commissioners can attend virtually or in person. Any other additions to this item or edits?
It's a question under 16 communications petitions. Is that in the nature of an added agenda item, or is that a totally different type of thing? And it does refer to section 16.2, but it says notwithstanding 16.2. The requirement is that it pertains to something that's listed on the agenda, which I think will be resolved by asking the agenda to be prepared earlier. But could somebody explain to me, and this is maybe something I should know because it's probably the same on council, but what's the difference between a communication petition and a request from a member of the public for a delegation or to put something on an added agenda?
I don't fully understand your question. I don't know.
Okay, I'm in section 16.
Yes.
Presentation, every communication or petition. Does that include requests from the public for added agenda items?
That would be communication, yes.
Okay. Okay, that clarifies that.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And the only other question I have is, and I'm looking, delegation, written request to the secretary. Shall confine remarks to the business. There's something in here about how it has to be something that's on the agenda. And again, I think that would be somewhat resolved, that will be resolved by a longer period. Any person wishing to be heard by the commission shall submit a written request to the secretary in accordance with the deadline set out in 6.2. Now I'm going back to 6.2 as it was amended, and that says 5 business days before.
Which is it to session?
We moved that to Sunday.
Okay.
All right, and perhaps if there's no other comments, okay. Commissioner Wilson.
Sorry, a couple comments. I don't know, if Commissioner Hopkins has hacked the system, but I still can't get into the agenda, and the London Transit website isn't functioning, at least for me. Secondly, I heard it said that I know there's tech issues today, but where possible, we could potentially join virtually. I don't know if that's sustaining, that's always ready to go in the background at any meeting, or we need to give advance notice or someone has a opportunity to set it up, realizing something like today, a kid issue comes up, it might be like, can you make it happen in an hour? Just, I don't know how that works here, so looking for clarification.
Through the chair, on a typical day, yes, we could certainly make it happen on the fly. Like I said, unfortunately, we had the 2 IT people, one off sick and one was offsite, dealing with something else this morning. So going forward, we have, indicated we will put this in the IT calendars. They're used to meetings still happening at 5 PM on Wednesday night. So there was a little bit of confusion there, but we'll make sure it's in the IT calendars so that we do have people on site as well, but we will be prepared to respond going forward.
It was mentioned earlier, at least for us, like, I like the link in the email of like, it's here. I also appreciate being attached, that I don't need to do the extra step to find the file, but I really appreciate the link there. So when the public asks, or if I'm promoting something on social media, that I'm like, here's the link. I don't need to look for it. I know it's gonna be the right one. And then do cut and paste. So I appreciate that. And just wanted to thank staff as well for being so prompt and responsive for our concerns from the last meeting. That is a great sign on the door saying it is an open meeting and just come on in. And just recognizing that that was a concern and it's already been implemented to care of. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna round up the comments. So changing the item for 5 days and for distribution and 7 days for agenda deadlines, including language regarding ability to join virtually. And then there was a desire to have a digital PDF certificate. I'm not sure if that needs to be linked to by.
That's something we can do. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna do that. So we do have 2 additions though, so the 5 and 7 days in the virtual meeting. I'm just thinking about crafting some language, so maybe it's motion to approve the staff changes with the 2 amendments.
Yeah, to change the rule to the distribution to 5 days and make 7 days the deadline. And I'll connect it to the item numbers in the attachment, and that commissioners be able to attend virtually or in person.
Yeah, great. Is everyone? Yeah.
One other minor thing, it might not have to go into the motion. If you go to the homepage of the LTC website and you look for the agendas from the homepage, there's no way for a member of the public who isn't sort of savvy as to what that address already is to get there. Could we put an explicit link that would get you there? Because you send an email around saying this is the URL for the agenda page, and actually if you do a search for it, you'll find it. But I think it should appear on the face of the webpage itself.
Through the chair, it does. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page under commission, there's a one there that says agenda, and if you click on that, it takes you right to the agenda page.
How about we have a discussion about this later?
I'll discuss that with appropriate staff offline. Okay.
Wonderful. Okay,
It's just a question of web design, really.
for sure. Yeah. always, I feel like looking for improvements and feedback, so, okay. With those two items, anyone willing to do?
One more, yeah, sorry. And it's small. It is actually, I can't find it cited in the meeting protocols, but I noticed it's a standard way that we communicate something that we're working through on the agenda. The language around note file. I'm just wondering, for me, note file has a different connotation to it, just in terms of what we're doing with that, if it's actionable or actioned or not. I'm just wondering if we might be able to move to some more action-oriented language to show that we're moving through something or something's been done with it versus that it's just note filed. Note filed always sounds to me like,
Yeah, yeah.
so, I don't know if it's not in the protocol, I couldn't find it in the protocol, but I just,
Perhaps, yeah, I just made a suggestion, so if we are going to look to try and do some of the note files as consent items, in future agendas to make the meeting more efficient, perhaps we could at that point look at changing the language, but it's a strong.
Through the chair, I mean, I know the city uses received versus note file, and we can certainly make that tweak again. That's just been a historic thing that we've never updated, but we're happy. I mean, that's an easy change for us to make going forward.
Perhaps I won't include in this, motion, but that's when we can discuss about it.
and then the last point I just wanted to make was, the meeting protocols are signed and confirmed by the commission secretary and the general manager, and I think we should cover by the chair. Just in terms of signature.
We have a requirement to do that.
It's in the protocols, they're signed on the report, it has a sign off spot, but I don't know if the actual, because I can't get into it right now, but the protocols themselves have a sign off. And I just think if we're including a sign off, I'm not sure why it would need the chair as well to sign off on things like protocols, minutes, et cetera, documentation.
Yeah, makes sense to me, Commissioner Berger.
Thank you. I would say like as chair or past chair of Dearness Home, like it was always like a staff person and the committee chair, just internal and external validating that it's accurate, just for transparency. So I appreciate that comment. Also your comments on when we did the motion earlier, you did direction for the budget and it's a note file, but traditionally on our end, note file means note, take no action and then take these actions. So at least from our words, just a little bit contrary from the space versus receive, you know, it was done, versus file is something different in our world.
Okay. Well, how about for, in the sake of time, in the next month, I'll chat with staff and vice chair and try to get some of that worked out. I don't think it. Okay, great, but I've taken note of both of those items. Any other comments on the front of us? You can see it, but we've discussed it.
So just making sure that the comments were just maybe in it being noted section versus your notepad and it gets.
I've added. Good job.
Sorry, which part?
So underneath of the two changes we're making, the 5 and 7 days and hybrid, an additional, just a little word that says it being noted, comments were made regarding no file versus receive,
yeah.
having a consent agenda and having chair signatures.
Can you move in a second or?
Yeah. I haven't gone into a sector for all of that, so they're gonna, move by Commissioner Robbins, second by Commissioner Plaza for all that. Awesome, and any further comments? Calling the vote, all in favor? And any opposed, that carries. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to transfer window extension, Councilor Burgess.
Thank you. As the report recommendation sets out, administration is seeking commission approval to implement a 30-minute extension to the transfer window on July and August as a goodwill gesture to customers who will be dealing with service impacts relating to construction projects throughout the city. The estimated cost of this initiative is $43,000, which is essentially lost revenue, which can be covered within the 2025 operating budget. In addition to the goodwill gesture, we also believe that this will give us some good data that we can utilize going forward when we're looking at other potential fair adjustments and fair programs. So we believe it's a win-win in that case. And with that, I'd be pleased to take any questions.
We'll look for a mover and seconder to take the recommendation on the floor and then questions. So moved by Commissioner Hopkins, second by Commissioner Plaza. And any questions on this? So I saw Commissioner Plaza and then Commissioner Trust.
Just to thank you, recognizing that we just discussed delays due to transit across this, or construction across the city, that I don't want any transit rider to feel like they've been taking advantage of, any driver to face extra aggression for the impacts of the day.
Thank you. And Commissioner Trust and then Hopkins.
Yes, thank you. I was very pleased to see this. And I'm of the view that it might not be a bad idea, despite the fact that it's a revenue loss to make this permanent. We would not have to make that decision right now. We can see how this goes in July and August. I'd be keen to get this running up in June. I think that if we can get people, especially younger people, into the habit of being able to take longer trips on one, they'll have a pass. So that's moved if they're university students, but not if they're high school students. So I really like this idea, and I think that do the drivers sort of have a sense of if they're running late, or if they're on a line where a previous bus passed the people by, that they would just as a courtesy extend the period, so people don't have to get into a dispute with the driver. My hope here is to avoid rider frustration and also cut down on bad interactions between frustrated riders and drivers.
Dave, do you want to take that?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm happy to answer that. Yeah, the 90-minute transfer window as it sits, we train the operators to be generous with that and always do some rounding to make sure that it's a minimum of 90 minutes, first and foremost. And secondly, their SOPs are to observe and report it, and to the rider that it's expired, but not to enforce the fare. And to your point, not to engage in a dispute about that, but to let the passenger ride.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, very supportive of this going forward. I see this as almost a pilot project, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, we go ahead and secondary, so I'll call all in favor. Any opposed? That carries. Moving to item 5, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Blake.
Thank you. Well, this report is generally formally a note and file report that deals with the other financial statements in terms of reporting what's going on with our capital, but it's been bumped up because of the onboard validator project that we're looking to have approval for. Included in the recommendation is award to Shine Bachman to design, build, and install OVVs for the conventional fleet at a cost of $1.8 million. As noted in the report, a project schedule and timeline is anticipated to be worked out with the vendor after approval of this, and we will report that back to the commission on timing as soon as we know that. Without it, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll also get a motion to move secondly recommendations to for
I'll
by Commissioner Trosser. Great, and any discussion on this item? Nope. All right, seeing none, then I will call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. And then that will do this question.
Yes, the next series of reports that we'll be dealing with represent the quarterly updates that are an integral part of our business planning and annual work planning process here at LTC. This specific report provides commentary on each of the items on the work program that were identified as ongoing or new in nature. And the enclosure provides the details with respect to the requisite staff reports that deal with each initiative on the work plan that was identified as being completed within the first quarter. The remainder of this report speaks for itself. However, as an update to the CUDA membership piece that's included in this report, in addition to the items listed, an immediate area of focus for CUDA will be the status of the Canadian Permanent Transit Fund, noting that it was not mentioned specifically in Prime Minister Carney's platform, like a number of other funding programs were. CUDA is already working on getting those meetings in place and having those discussions. And our hope is that it is there. It just wasn't specifically identified, but certainly I will bring back updates to the commission as we have any. And obviously we will, as we indicated at the previous meeting, we'll be working with FCM on this as well. That I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions on those? Which is item number 6. Yes. Counselor Johnson.
As part of the, mobility master plan update, there was an addition for, what's been referred to as the ring road, but it actually is more than the ring road. It is a discussion, which I understand the city is gonna have with other, or at least the mayor is gonna have with other entities. And I see that you've got the 1.5 intercommunity transit service integration. And I'm just wondering if at a future meeting, if we could get like a fuller report on all of our connections to intercommunity transit service with an eye towards improving that service, and maybe having this group that is going to be working on the discussions with the surrounding communities arising out of the mobility master plan to consider that, including how transfers work. Because I look at some of the maps for the surrounding communities, and it's pretty positive. And I think we need to be planning for more trips to St. Thomas, at least for sure. Yeah.
So are you requesting a future report regarding Lund Transit's interrelationship with intercommunity bus system, or I'm just not sure what specifically?
Well, I see it's listed here as a item 1.5. So if this is a, well, it's a work program first quarter update. I would just like to see at your convenience, because you've got a lot to do, and this is not a priority that I need for the next meeting, but I would like to see some additional information about a full listing of connections. So I also think that would be useful for the public in planning trips where they may be able to go to what's that jingle on TV downtown Strathroy?
Yeah.
And be great to be able to go to Stanford. But anyway, that would be good to get that.
Yes, if they circulate as well to.
We, through the chair, we can certainly do that as well. We can certainly provide information with respect to the outer communities that connect with us. I would just caution, we don't have any control over their service levels or those things, like those are all funded separately. So the reason this is included on our work plan as an ongoing project is anytime one of those launches, we certainly work, hand in hand with them to help them identify what would be ideal locations for them to come into London, which would make, give the rider the most opportunities to transfer to where they're going. Those type of things. We'll put them in contact, in cases, one of the systems has a stop at Vic Hospital. So we put them in contact with the appropriate people to get permission, that type of thing. So it's more of a, we're working with them, but we don't have control over their levels of funding or what they're able to do. It's more just making sure that they can align with us in the best way possible, but we can certainly put together an email that would update the commission on what services connect and where they connect.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Any other comments on 6? No. And I will need to file the information by Commissioner Robin, second by Commissioner Hopkins. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And we're going to item 7 to Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff report number 7, first quarter update for conventional operations. For the first quarter from the work program for 2025. We have ongoing monitoring and reporting of our on-time performance for the first quarter. The revealed on-time performance of 72%. As noted in the report, we know there's not on time anything that is operating more than 5 minutes late from our time points. And at any time point with early adherence is also considered to be not on time. Operators are trained in general to an expected order of 1 to 3 minutes late, so that no passengers are missed. The goal and industry standard for on-time performance is at 90%. Our inability to add tripper buses has been hampered by the lack of buses and/or drivers, as well as ongoing construction projects throughout the city. As is noted in staff report 15 to follow, that is applies for lateness. We are always doing early enforcement as part of job performance for operators. So anything that leaves that time point even a minute early, we follow up and monitor our employees for that performance and take action as appropriate. That makes up about 8% of the not on time. The rest is the 19 remaining points are for what we consider to be more than 5 minutes late. The Expect Respect program started late 2024 with training for our employees in the communication program aimed at transit riders and customers. The primary goal of that program is to help reduce the incidence of workplace violence in the workplace going forward. And another project for 2025 is a review of opportunities to help to reduce the number of total preventable collisions by enhancing training for our operators. We've identified an early opportunity to focus on high-risk driving behaviors from operators, and to date, we've had 76 already attend a full day of training focused on tools to help them mitigate the risk of collisions. That's an ongoing project in 2025. That'd be happy to answer any questions, Mike.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Butler? Commissioner Tressa?
I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions, but this is really simple. On-time performance. If a bus has to pass people by because they're full, how is that reflected in on-time performance, or is that irrelevant to the on-time performance stats?
Through the chair, that would be a crowding issue. It's not what we consider. If that bus is at that time point on time, it would be considered on time. But that would be a crowding issue. That's tracked separately.
Okay, and I think it is a crowding issue, which suggests the need for additional services. Which takes me back to the question I was asking at our first meeting in terms of how we track these sort of crowding related drive-bys where people are frustrated they can't get on. Because as far as the rider is concerned, the bus is late because they're looking at on time from the point of view of whether they're able to get onto the bus to go to their ultimate destination or their connection. So when we accumulate the on-time performance, is there another column that says missed stops because of overcrowding?
And through the chair, that's not tracked in the on-time performance metrics that we use through the staff to monitor that. We get a daily crowding report that's analyzed by Katie's team in planning for review where there are problem issues and timing on certain routes, and that's addressed hopefully and when there's the opportunity through planning opportunities.
And maybe just to follow up on that, is there any like dashboard with charts that you have that could kind of demonstrate that? Like I feel the commissioner is kind of looking for understanding when things are not on time, understanding when things are overcrowded. Do you have anything simple that we could get or that you track?
Through the chair, that is something we could the on-time performance we have and track that on a month-by-month basis and year-over-year. And so we could provide that, that analysis if required. And as far as the crowding, I might defer to Katie if we could put together a report on it.
Yeah, through the chair, we do track that. As Mr. Butler indicated, we do get a daily report of all of the locations. So it gives the exact time and location and route where the overcrowding occurred. And we do map that to be able to see as a heat map where we're seeing those crowding conditions happen.
Okay, so perhaps I'll follow up and see if we can send those as files if possible, just for our.
Yes, thank you. And ultimately, this is a major, I represent the Ward 6, which is the area around the university that includes a lot of the routes where this could happen. Making it available to the public or at least to our contract. What's the right term for the entities that have the contracts with us for the student passes, our contract partners, because I know they're very interested in this. And every time there's a missed connection, it undermines the USC, for example. It undermines their SOGs. It undermines their ability to go back to the students in the next referendum and have this program continued. Which I think would be not great for us.
Well, for us to take those comments, because we can get that via email, and maybe then if there's something that you want to bring forward to an agenda, to do with that information, just given that it's for. I see Commissioner Lehman.
Thank you, and to you, Chair, question for Mr. Butler. You mentioned some of the reasons for not being timed, lack of buses and drivers. So I just want to drill down a bit on that. As far as lack of buses, is that a maintenance issue or is that a capital issue? We're not able to purchase buses that we've addressed in, previous capital. Sorry.
Yeah, and through the chair, it would be a little bit of both. I hear and I've heard, I think, previous about, concerns with, available mechanics as one. Secondly, the roll-up time for new buses, but thirdly is I think the big part is the amount of budget we have to put towards that is a challenge at times. So it's all three things.
Sure. And through Chair again, as far as drivers are concerned, is that same issues regarding drivers, or are we trying to hire drivers who we can't, or we're having trouble finding drivers?
And through the chair, we're currently at our complement that we need for the budget that we have. And there's always ongoing training and onboarding through normal attrition, retirements and things like that. So we aren't below our complement. We are where we need to be as far as the number of operators to match the budget that we have.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions, Mr. Butler? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. So I had a question regarding the mutual respect policy and specifically the communication that we have that is provided here in the package. So thanks for sharing that and how that's being rolled out. I do find that quite helpful. Although one of the things I struggled with reading through the policy is what's the consequence associated? It really doesn't, to me, in a way, really address consequences associated with the behavior that's unacceptable. And I'm just wondering how we can better communicate that, that there is no tolerance for this type of behavior towards our drivers and that there are consequences as such.
Thank you through the chair, and specific to that part of your question, we do have a banning policy in place, and so that if someone does something that meets the threshold, we will consider them for a ban. They would be notified legally that they're not welcome on the buses or on our property. And then our staff that are not only our operators would report what they see, but then we have inspectors on road to go and enforce that and to have them asked to be stepped off, and if necessary, call for London Police if it's needed. But that's the process for anyone who does do something to a threshold we think warrants a ban using the services.
Thank you. And through you, where's the escalation process addressed clearly so that someone can understand what that might?
Yeah, through the chair, could you just try to bring that?
Sorry, just so what does the escalation, you just explained an escalation process, but where can we point to an escalation process? Where can staff feel confident that that process is in place so that it's clearly listed for all parties to see?
And thank you through the chair, like beyond all of the training that we do with our employees, and one of that is to train them on that banning policy, which is part of our, all of the different mutual respect policies, the different ones we have, we train and they're aware that that policy is there. I would say that I'm comfortable saying that all of our operators know about our banning policy and how that works.
Mr. Falk, though, it sounds like the commissioner is interested in seeing in a policy, like, they yell at you, that's fine, or, step two, then they attack you, then you have to ban, like, I think you want an escalation.
I think that just more clear parameters around what escalation looks like and how it's addressed, as defined more clearly in the policy. I think it's great that we're telling people, we're going to respect you, and this is how you respect us in the service, but I do think that there needs to be some clear language around when you don't, here's what happens. And I think that that's, when you don't see the consequence and all you see is some language around the fact that we are encouraging more respect, I do think that can be a challenge for some, and it just helps again from a clarity perspective to know that that can be addressed.
And are you more looking for people, the riders, to know the potential consequences that could be banned? It sounds like the drivers.
I think it's a bit of both. I think that, you know, clear messaging would be helpful from that perspective. I also know that there's a difference if it happens on the bus versus if there's actions or concerns that happen off the bus, but around a shelter or at the shelter. Like you can't ban somebody, or you're told you can't ban somebody. Had this issue with some students. But at a shelter for their behavior, for the things that they're doing, or perhaps to property adjacent to that. But we can if it's on the bus. So again, just some
Any comments from staff?
We can certainly look at the policy that's posted and look at providing a little bit more clarity and bring something back.
Sounds sufficient?
Thank you. Yes, I would.
Sure.
Yes, further to that question, I would take the position that the bus shelters constitute part of the premises of the commission, and whatever rules of conduct apply on the bus, they would apply at least within the shelter. And I know that that's much harder to enforce because we don't have drivers at each shelter, but is that something that could be written into the policy, just so people have an expectation that when they're in the shelter, they're in sort of a commission, that's part of the ride extended. Is that?
Through the chair, again, we can certainly look to legal for an update. Our feedback from legal in the past has been that's city property, that's not London Transit property, so it is not within our purview to be able to ban somebody from basically city public property. So we can certainly refer back to legal as part of this review and have a look at that again, but that's what our policies have been based on.
Thank you. That would be helpful. And my next question is, when there is an incident that involves a delay, is it clear to the drivers that if they need to do something that's going to delay the route and put them outside of the 5 minutes, that it is not going to be considered the driver's fault and it would not be part of their sort of record of being late? I just want to make sure that our drivers have the confidence that they could invoke whatever this escalation clause is, which I agree with the commissioner that this is going to need to be made clear. Is it clear to the drivers that they should feel free in the interest of safety to escalate it, even if it means a delay?
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good question, and our commentary to all of our operators is safety over schedule, whether that's an incident as you've described that's happened because of it might involve, you know, workplace violence matter. They certainly are held to account for any delays because of detours or construction. You know, those are both of those type of incidents. And then the other part is even adverse weather. All right, so when it is, you know, like the winter we experienced this year, and we tell them that it's safety over schedule. And so at no point would any operator be subject to any kind of job performance review for something that is beyond their control. And they're expected to be able to deal with those matters rather than, you know, scheduled appearance. That would become secondary.
Any other comments on item 7? No. Okay, the appointment secretary to the file is by Commissioner Hopkins, seconded by Commissioner Rahman. That's one of the commentary, so I'll just call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. So we move on to item 15 now. It's on the agenda. So that is over to Mr. Graham.
Yeah, well, staff report number 15 highlights the specialized transit operating results for the first 3 months of the year. The favorable result is due mainly to lower than budgeted contract services charges. And however, it should be noted that the missed service hours in the first quarter have been reapplied to future off-peak service, which would enable the system to recoup those hours. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the financial side.
Any questions? Commissioner Fossa?
Anybody else? Okay, Thank, you recall me. Thank you for putting these two together. The main statistic on here is at the is the variance in the second chart. And I do have concerns about the 12.7 variance, which is the difference in the actual, but the actual and the budget. How has this variance? And we're just looking at this year's in isolation, and sometimes it would be helpful to go back through past. If I was interested in just tracking the variance number in that chart over the years, is there a simple way short of going through each agenda and pulling it up? Is there a simple way of getting a chart of how that variance has changed over? Is this a quarterly report?
This is a monthly.
It's a monthly report, yeah. Is there a way of tracking that?
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, happy to provide a summary, you know, like the data is there. It's obviously pulled to, you know, for a quarterly update in this nature. But yeah, monthly on a year-to-date basis, but yeah, the data is available, so I mean, we can pull something.
It's not something that we have prepared though. It's something that we would have to go and prepare.
Just off the top of your head though, do you have any sense of whether this is a constant number or whether that fluctuates a lot? And don't answer that if you don't know.
I just want to clarify, when you said 12.7, you're referring to the eligible passenger trips?
Yes.
With that being
Yes.
ignored. Yeah, I mean, you can see down below that it really is a function of I guess, the ability to get the budgeted number of trips. So when you see in the second column at the very bottom, we're budgeting for 2 trips per hour. We got to 1.82 trips. So that difference, or the efficiency, and maybe Mr. Wilson can speak to what they're doing to address that. But that does speak for that reduction in the ability or for the number of passenger trips that happened. There could be 2 components to that number being lower. One, that efficiency piece, which is how many we were taking an hour, and the other one would be service hours. So if you reduce service hours or they were unable to deliver it, well, then you're losing 2 an hour. In this case, we're losing 0.15 of a ride per hour. So there's 2 components to that, with on a year-to-date basis, it being really solely related to that efficiency piece, and maybe Mr. Wilson can address a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, through the chair, I can speak to that. So as Mike stated, you have 2 things happening. You have a reduction in actual hours provided, and we speak to that in this report, as well as report number 8, with the vendor struggling with some resource availability that caused some reduction, which you lose 2 trips per every service hour on that reduction. Also, when they lose service, it's generally been during our biggest peak period where we realize the best revenue rides per service hour. So it would be even a little bit over 2. And then additionally, with the implementation of the new system, there was obviously confusion with the new technology upgrade, and we weren't as efficient. You see in the staff report for 8, we speak further again with respect to the tweaking parameters currently right now to continue to see improvement on that. And it has improved since January 15th. It's improved month over month. We're expecting going forward that it will continue to do the same.
I'm looking at the 4 bullets under net operating costs. It says there's an unfavorable transportation revenue of 21,000 due to lower ridership than planned. Is there a particular reason for the lower ridership? And the reason I would like to see that in the report is to compare that reason. If it's persistently lower, get a sense of whether that's the same reason each time or whether that reason shifts. Because when we look at those reasons over a period of time, that may be an indication that we need service upgrades or that we need additional revenues to fill that gap.
Through the chair, again, happy to take that. So yeah, you going into that is specifically the reduction in service hours that were available and the rides per revenue service hour trips that were available. And that's just based on efficiencies. What I would suggest that our challenges have lied in lack of availability with resources, both vehicle and manpower from the vendor, specifically over the last several months. It's been cleaned up as stated in staff report number 8. Over the last month, they've shown some exceptional improvements that will positively impact that, but it will also positively impact the rides per revenue service hour number based on the fact that that service will be in place when our greatest demand is.
Okay,
So we should see improvement.
I'm really trying, I'm really gonna try to abbreviate my questions here and we can discuss this later, but, third bullet, 109,000 due to penalties applied to the service provider. And by service provider, I assume you mean Boygo, not the, software. Okay, so, not achieving permanent predetermined service levels. Have these penalties been consistent over the months? If I pulled out all the previous reports, would I see this penalty number staying the same or going up or going down or just not being reported? Is this the first time this is being reported?
Through the chair, Mike, I don't think you explicitly list that one every month, right?
No, through the chair, no, it hasn't, and we can definitely break that out on the reporting to do that, but you're specifically, your question, has it been the same? I would say no, I'm not sure which month, last year, September, it started being applied. You know, in the form of a penalty to ensure that they meet the service hours. It was significant. Obviously, the vendor rallied around that because of the lost revenue for not delivering the required hours. It was more significant in January and then has dropped off, you know, quite significantly. So I mean, I think it says 9,000. I think the penalty in March was about 14,000. So it has been reducing there, doing better.
If I understand the contract, then we are now in a 2-year extension following a 5-year contract, and the contract carries over the same substantive provisions. So whatever the penalty provisions are in the contract, they've been there for the first 5 years, not just now. Why is this just being applied for the first time?
Through the chair, I can speak to that as well. Through COVID, there was significant impacts to everybody with respect to resource availability. The vendor was running what we were scheduling to run based on demand through COVID. As we came out of COVID, the vendor, no different than us, was experiencing great difficulty, and Craig speaks to it each month with respect to getting vehicles so that they can each provide. And then the manpower availability is difficult. Question earlier for David with respect to can we hire? We can now. We have the ability to obtain staff. 12 months ago, it was very, very difficult. So penalties were put on hold during COVID specifically because they were running what they were expected to run at that point. Through the early part and mid part of last year, they started to fail with respect to where we expected them to be. They were put on notice that we would return back to billing as per the contract in September, and that's when it was put back into place.
May I just sort of defer to some, I have a few more questions, but I'd like to just stop talking for a few minutes and see if anybody else has questions.
Yeah.
May I do that?
That'd be great. And I also might suggest, maybe sending these via email to ask staff if there's like a specific motion you're hoping to come out of the general discussion, just for time, for sake of time, things quite.
Yes, I do have an ultimate question that I'll get to.
Yeah.
But anybody else?
Any other questions? Commissioner Pelosi?
Thank you. Just one Zoom question, realizing this meeting has 45 minutes, that we're left scheduled for it. There was a penalty I see for not providing service. Is there any bonus offered that if they do hit their targets, they actually get a bonus as an incentive to dig deeper, try harder?
Through the chair, no bonuses, they get paid what we pay them for. So no, there is no bonus
No
for
extra.
actually hitting, but there is penalties associated with not achieving what they have agreed to.
I just know that some other places do offer that extra bump up, that if you do hit it fully, not only do you get the money and the jobs you were supposed to do, but there's that extra. So thank you, just appreciate knowing that.
Any other comments? No questions? No? Okay, Commissioner Trossa, and I encourage you to abbreviate your questions.
I'm doing the best I can, and in respect to the last comment that was made, and in respect to the chair, I'm really doing the best that I can, but I do think that this is an item of concern that has really been brought to me by a lot of people, and I feel it's my responsibility on this commission to use this time to do it. So I'm doing the best that I can. Now, on staff report 8, it says, it talks about the, trip totals reaching 1,200 per day, significant increase, delivered on time. Yet in this report, it talks about this gap. And when I first read staff report 8 and compared it to staff report 15, I felt that there was a little bit of a contradiction between the two reports in terms of how numbers were being reported differently and in terms of the overall tone and assessment. Which is why I wanted these two brought together today. So I'm wondering, is the information in here about the variance contrary to what's in the what's in the other report that really talks in very glowing terms about how good things are. And I'm not asking that as a rhetorical question. I'm just wondering if you could address
We're
that.
just waiting for you to finish the question before I transfer it over to the.
Yeah, so that's my question on that.
Through the chair. I think it's a good question. It's a fair question. In September of 2024, 10,000 service hours were added to the system to offer more revenue ride opportunity. In January 1st, 2025, the service plan implementation went in for this year. So you've seen 20,000 additional hours go into the system. Staff report number 8, speaking to the glowing increase in the amount of service hours that we've been able to, the amount of serviceable trips that we've been able to provide, both as a result of the scheduling software becoming more efficient and us being able to realize some of that in there, but additionally, based on the service hour improvements that went in. So that this, where you see that with the service plan implementation and it talks about the rides, this is specific to the increase in the service hours that went into the system. So those two things are kind of happening together. So you're seeing service hours improved, which is offering more eligible trips that we can brag about. And that's fantastic because access to the community is important. So that piece is explained there. We're delivering them in a reasonable way with respect to on-time performance as well and on-board performance. So that stuff is being highlighted here because it's important information. When we talk about the financials piece and the budgeted amount, you're seeing the reduction based on the fact that we didn't realize all of the 10,000 hours based on some resource shortage and the efficiencies at 1.82 revenue trips per revenue service hour. So those two things are happening at the same time, and they're both accurate, and I see how they appear contradictory. But when you think about the amount of hours that went into the service increase, that can speak to the difference in the trips provided.
Okay, so my final question or groups of questions deals with where is all this information going? How are all these reports going to inform future action of this board? And my question first is if the current 2-year extension is expiring in July 2027, what do we need to do in order to have a new RFP prepared in time to be able to come in and provide a continuity of services? And by asking this question, by the way, I am not slamming the vendor. I just think it's something this board needs to know in terms of our planning.
Through the chair, the RFP is scheduled to go out this summer on the 2025 work program. So it is an item that's already scheduled. So we would look probably, I'm saying fall, just depending on, the way the RFP rolls out, but this fall, the commission would award that contract. And the reason that we plan that far ahead is obviously if it's a new vendor or even the existing vendor, the time required to procure vehicles for that new contract, that gives them the appropriate time to get ramped up, get employees and do what's necessary. So that's already built into the work plan.
Okay, so I take it would be premature to make an amendment to this motion today to ask you to start preparing the RFP for us. Oh, okay. Will the board get to see the RFP or will some subset of the board get to see the RFP before it goes out for tender?
Through the chair, we don't typically share the entire RFP. We do have discussions. We will be having discussions with the advisory committee with respect to, are there elements, of the service that they would like to see change? And as an example, in the previous contract that was let, what we heard from the advisory committee was they wanted to have cameras and video recordings on board specialized vehicles. So that was included in that contract. That's just an example. So we do have those discussions and things like that. We also, Mr. Wilson is also undertaking a kind of a scan of other contracts for specialized services across the country. And we're looking, you know, if there's clauses in there that make sense for us maybe to incorporate. So we would bring back a report to the commission that would talk about if there was major changes we were looking at. And then look for that to be included in the RFP. But I mean, if the commission wants to see the entire RFP, we can make that happen as well. Again, that may impact scheduling because now we've got to have that ready for a commission meeting to come before it can be released. So I just throw out that caution.
So perhaps, Commissioner Johnson could say if there are specific things you want to see in that RFP, we can file them and circulate to staff.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I think the advisory committee is going to be interested in looking at too. I'm going to have to go through all of the minutes of the advisory committee to see what inquiries they've made about this in the past. Do we have the ability to put things in the RFP along the lines of the drivers should be paid the same scale as the LTC drivers?
Through the chair, I would say you can certainly make a fair wage requirement. We have traditionally avoided specifics that get into the employer-employee relationship because LTC is not the employer of those employees. It is a contractual relationship. So again, there can be clauses that reference what you would prefer. Again, I would caution that any of those things that you do include when we're dealing with a limited budget, if the rate per hour that they charge us doubles going forward, that means you're getting half the service unless you're doubling the budget. So I would just throw cautions out there that when you're speccing things like that, you know, they will come back and cost more money, but if there's no increased budget, what that means is eventually or effectually would be a service reduction right out of the gate.
I'm going to say we actually aren't debating the RFP right now, so perhaps if we can move along with.
I am trying to gather information to be able to be useful at the advisory committee and also
Commissioner
in
Johnson, I
terms
can
of.
appreciate that, but can you please do it via email and.
I do have a few more questions I'd like.
Related to item 15.
Yes, okay, I'm gonna assume that we're gonna put a full discussion about the RFP on the June agenda. Because I don't want to be in a situation where when we get the RFP back and a recommendation.
The RFP, please keep your items to item 15. Just so we can continue moving through. stuff at
My
8 more.
question is one of the options, if the costs go up too much, to bring this service in-house?
Commissioner Johnson, can you please just bring any RFP related items to discussion?
We're having a discussion about the performance of our contract partner here.
We're having a discussion about item 15, which is financial updates. Item 8 would be more of that discussion. We still haven't gone through it. Do you have questions about the financial reporting that Mr. McGregor provided? Please ask them. Otherwise, I would like.
I'll save that question until we get to report 8.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on item 15? I'm gonna move my second year to item 15 with my Commissioner Robbins, second Commissioner Hopkins. Any comments further? No, all in favor? And any opposed? One opposed, but that carries. All right, now move to item number 8, 25 work plan. So I will still open up for questions specific to this item. Yes,
Sorry, I would move it to get before. I know we're just going a little bit different today than we do in council, but happy to get before start discussion.
Okay, Commissioner Posey moves, seconded by Commissioner Rahman. Any comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
May I ask the question that was ruled out of order under the last item now? Or would that not be on the floor here?
Well, let's hear the question first.
Well, it was with respect to options that we would have under the RFP. Noting that the reason I'm raising this concern now at this very early stages, I don't want to get the bids back and be told that I'm raising this new issue that should have been in the RFP and we can't deal with it because it wasn't in the RFP. And we've heard that at council.
Yes, okay, over to staff. I don't know if you have that or answer. regarding if we can, through the RFP process, look at bringing the special services.
Through the chair, well, that's two different things. I mean, if we're issuing an RFP looking for a contractor, we're looking for a contractor. If we don't like the results of what comes back from a contractor, that may eventually be an outcome. I will caution that that is not something that we could turn around in 2 years. That would mean building a facility, hiring, employees to run that service, buying the vehicles. I mean, we would have the same issue with procuring those vehicles as vendors do. It's a 2-year time frame. So that's a significant undertaking, and I would just suggest that you don't word an RFP to say if we don't like the bids, we're going to do something else. I think the RFP has to happen, and if the commission isn't happy with what comes back, I would suggest you're probably still going to have to look at awarding something in an interim basis, and then study the potential of moving something in-house much more thoroughly before a decision would be made.
Okay, thank you, and I'm hoping I'll be able to request something on the agenda in writing through an email for the June meeting that goes into this in some more detail.
That would sound great. Okay, any other comments? Item? Nope, all right, then on the vote, all in favor? And any opposed? Anyone opposed, that carries. Okay, now item 9, I'll be passing the chair to Commissioner Rahman as Secretary of interest on the issue.
Thank you. For item 9, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder so we can begin discussion on this item. Councilor Pelosi, Councilor Hopkins, thank you. And any discussion on item 9? Staff have any comment on this report?
Yeah, I can give a brief summary. So this sets out the major planning projects for the first quarter. I just wanted to highlight a couple of items. With regards to the rapid transit continued construction, that is well underway. All of the shelters along East Link phase 1 and 2, as well as in the downtown loop, have been installed with the exception of Queens and Clarence. And one of the biggest milestones that we have reached with that so far is that we are now operating Route 94 along the dedicated lanes on King Street between Ontario and downtown. So that's been a great milestone to be able to reach. The other item that I wanted to bring your attention to was the pilot that we are doing with the shelter glass at 2 locations. This is more durable glass product, and then we are testing due to high vandalism in some areas and the amount of breakage that we're seeing. So we are going to do a pilot program at these locations for a year to see how the material holds up, not only to vandalism, but also to weather conditions and other factors that may impact the glass. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, through presiding chair, really appreciate the information in this report. Let's see that the FCC is in the steering committee with the BIP as well. So it's really good.
Very briefly, in terms of the shelters, is it clear is it clear to the snow operators in the city and the public who's responsible for the snow clearing maintenance in and around the shelters? Because I do get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, so all of the snow, through the chair, all of the snow clearing is contracted to the City of London. So they are responsible for all clearing at the bus stops.
Thank you, through the chair. Do we have a way of tracking complaints about gaps in service from the city so we could raise that at the city?
Through the chair, we do get contacts that come in through our customer service department. And then we do follow up with the city on that, on specific issues if there is a location that has not been cleared of snow.
I'll leave that for now. Maybe raise it again before the next season.
Commissioner Blizzard.
Thank you. Just a couple comments and then a question. Really excited to see schools with the uptake of using transit, which hopefully riders on sooner, and the huge gap in making sure kids still have a trip. It's usually the highlight of the year. with the shelter glass pilot, seeing the report mentions that it's virtually indestructible. Does it still comply with whatever we needed to do, or what are the parameters around it for these vehicles that find their way from the roadway into, facility and structure?
Through the chair, what we have been told by the, supplier of the glass is that even when it is hit by a vehicle, it will just pop out of the shelter frame as opposed to shattering. So again, that's part of what we're doing with the pilot program to see how it holds up to, any instances of that nature.
Thank you. Presiding officer, a follow-up question to Councillor Troutman's question regarding, the city's snow plowing. Shelter stops. Just looking for clarification on how that relationship works, that it also relates to the budget process of, do we set a rate and they service it, or do they have their set cost and then we get billed back or whatever they decide to charge us?
Through the chair, the city bills us based on whatever their rate is. And you will, when you see the budget in August, you'll see discretionary line items that talk specifically about snow clearing at stops, shelters, that kind of thing. We contract obviously for on-site for our own snow clearing, but the stops and shelters are paid for by us, but we are invoiced for the city.
Follow-up question. Realize we wear different hats in different places. Is the city of London the best value out there? Do we go back and do an environmental scan of who's actually offering a service? Like, is it just the way we've always done it, or is somebody actually potentially a better offering?
Through the chair, I think the problem with us doing it on our own is we could potentially send contractors out there to clean our stops and shelters immediately. And then the plow comes by in the street and dumps all the snow back in. And then after they're done the streets, they come by on the sidewalk and dump the snow back in again. So we could essentially be removing snow 3 times if we're not in sync with the city. So it does make the most sense for the city to do it because it's done in that order. So that we're not duplicating efforts. Again, it's something we could look at, but I do believe it would result in a duplication of efforts if we were to undertake it.
I appreciate that. I know that sometimes the city seems to get out of sync even with itself, and look at sidewalks, bike lanes, roads, and then when they come back and do so. So just when they're happy to know LTC's experiences are a little bit better than some other road users. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions on this item, I'm just wondering, I will make a comment from the presiding officer chair. I want to just comment on the other class trips on transit component of this report. So first, thank you for clarifying what the process is. Really appreciate it. However, one of the concerns I have is, although I think it's great to have the voucher system, the challenge is oftentimes the school doesn't find out if they are going to have a bus for a field trip, but there's some more coordination that takes place behind the scenes. And I'm not sure if this is the most effective way to encourage this as first use versus fallback use. And then, of course, with some of the considerations on the cost side, you know, I know a lot of, especially in the month of June, a lot of schools will make a decision about a field trip with less of a time window because they have the ability to do so, and even a closer field trip rather than something maybe a bit further out. So encouraging that usage, I think the voucher system might just put another layer of thinking that they have to make sure that they hit that 2-week timeline in order to be able to make it work. I'm just wondering if there's a way, being that the service is free for under 12, that they can do this without having to go through the process as well.
Through the chair, we do need some way to track it because we do need to know how many students are using it. That's why we do have FOBs for other kids outside of the trips, because that does then get billed back to the city for reimbursement to us. So we need some way to be able to track how many students are using as opposed to them just going out and getting on board the bus.
So do schools no longer have the FOBs at all?
Through the chair, some schools do still have them. Other schools have given them back to us because they said they didn't need to use them anymore. So there is a combination. Some schools do still have the FOBs.
So could it be instead of an and or both, where they can do both the voucher system for 2 weeks in advance when it's a planned and more longer thought out process for that trip. But if they wanted to do a shorter term trip, they could just use potentially the FOBs that they have on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, there's nothing stopping schools from using the FOBs. I would just maybe clarify. The reason we came about the voucher system was feedback from the schools. Because the teachers were misplacing FOBs, and then it was a, hey, we're heading out for a field trip, and then it was, where's the FOBs?
Right.
So this process is actually a result of consultation with school boards from the past, that the FOBs wasn't necessarily the best way for them. The cleanest way, but there's no reason why if somebody still has the FOBs that they can't use them. We've not said that you can't. It's just this what seemed like a better solution once we talked with the parties going forward.
Thank you. That just very fine, right? Just through the chair, because the requests come in through customer service. And we have turned around if the teachers have a planned event, just 2 days away, we do turn it away.
Oh,
That could be.
okay, and so 2 weeks isn't a hard and fast. We have to request it. It's requested. Okay, so as long as we can communicate that it's not a hard and fast rule, that it has to be within that 2 week window, I think that's helpful. And then at some point, I'd like us to give some thought to how we could better encourage high school trips for field trips in the future. And I'm just wondering if perhaps it's something we can consider for not a June report, but a further out report in advance of the September school year, whether that's some way just to let schools know more openly the offerings that we have and how to better fit that in, and if the same planning services are available to them if they're looking at doing their focus at the secondary school level.
Through the chair, just a clarification. Oh, sorry. Chair. Just a clarification. In the high school case, there would be the expectation that they would pay.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, just to be clear. But yes, we can certainly look at that.
Yeah, and again, it's just from a communications perspective, how do they look for options and opportunities where it makes sense, but there is a cost associated and how. Wonderful, thank you. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's all the public consult. For Commissioner Mike, and I'll return the chair to you.
Thank you. Now to item 10, Mr. Morneau. You have a requesting?
Yes. To the chair, thank you. Staff report number 10 provides an update of major projects out in 2025 in the work program. Ongoing in nature or scheduled to commence and or have been completed in the first quarter. Talks about 10.2 for the facility upgrades in both facilities. 10.3 is shopping garage equipment. 10.4 is service fleet replacement. And then the bottom part is an Ontario Ministry transportation that we've kept on through the last few years for anything that's ongoing with the ministry that I follow up on. Please answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions? Seeing none, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Motion quick. At 11, back to Mr. Berger. Sorry, Mr. Berger.
Well, with Mike at the beginning. The first quarter was a busy one with finance focus, on completing the year end and the audit as well as the budget updates. Those have been referenced in prior reports. The other projects including the facility valuation, insurance renewal, and the asset management plan update were also completed.
Thank you.
Answer any questions?
Mover and seconder on that one as well. Commissioner Roman, seconded by Commissioner Lehman. Any comments or questions on the plan? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? Carrying. Over to Mrs. Galloway.
Thank you. And through the chair, the report details the key initiatives that Human Resources has been working on for the first quarter of 2025. The first section of the report talks about the occupational health and safety program. So just for some backup, I just wanted to explain how we got to those initiatives. We have two joint health and safety committees, one at the Wonderland facility and one at our Highbury facility on an annual basis. The committees get together in the fall of each year and we look at injuries, any legislative changes, any hazards that we need to work on. And the committee develops a work plan for the upcoming year. So that was done in November twenty twenty-four for the work plan for 2025. That work plan then gets approved through the Joint Health and Safety Committees. And it involves all of the work plan initiatives that are done collectively with employee members of the committee and management members of the committee. And I've highlighted in the report just the first quarter, two initiatives, one with the inspector vehicle assessment being completed, and another larger project that is a multi-year project, looking at all of our policies and procedures to make sure that they are within best practice and continue to meet legislative requirements and address the issues that we have at London Transit. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the report.
Thank you. So we're gonna have mover and seconder, moved by Commissioner Rob, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins. Any comments or questions on Senate? Commissioner Rob?
Thank you. I just had a question regarding the bullet related to the operator group training around human rights, diversity, anti-sexual and discrimination policies and mutual respect. Noting that there was a 30% participation at this time, but the full rollout wasn't anticipated until 2027. I'm just wondering why the timeline of time horizon is so.
The program, our policies and our procedures say that basically the program, all employees will go through training on an 8-year cycle. So we updated the program in 2024 and we started the rollout in 2024. So administration has the training, fleet facilities employees have the training. Operators are a little bit tricky because when we pull an operator off the road, we have to have an operator to replace that individual. So it has to do with timing. There's periods where we can train operators when we have more operators on what's called show up. And if you need particulars on that, I'm going to refer to Mr. Wilson, but it's when we have the ability to train, because if we pull 8 operators off the road, we have to have 8 operators in the building ready to take on those buses. So 2020, saying it's going to be completed in 2027, obviously we're going to do everything to have it done sooner, but just in follow-up to what Mr. Butler had mentioned, we're putting operators through motor vehicle accident training, and that is a full day training program. We're also put all of our new operators that have been hired over the last 2 years through a 1-day refresher program. So they're actually receiving refresher human rights. And that was the priority for the latter part of 2024 and going into 2025. I'm hoping the focus is going to be for the remainder of the year to focus operators on going through that training for human rights and mutual respect. Since 2024, we've had how many operators hired? About 50, 50 operators that have been hired to date. So those aren't included in the 30% because they have that as part of their onboarding. So we hopefully will see it. Will take some time, but if we have an issue with where we're not at complement, that will slow things down because it's just a matter of getting the people in the classroom. This is done through a facilitator. We have 2 trainers in human resources that have specific training to do human rights and mutual respect training. And it also has to fit within their timelines and their ability to train because that portion of the program is a half-day program.
Thank you. No, other than just to say, I'm sure you've explored options for virtual training modules being delivered in separate opportunities so that the operator maybe doesn't have to come off the road, but can be incentivized to take that training in another manner.
Through the chair, we have when it comes to human rights and mutual respect, specifically with the operators, because of the number of customers they deal with on a daily basis, that is a difficult program. We have started actually doing online training, health and safety, which has worked out really well in facilities. This particular program, we have looked at it and there's so much interaction. And because we have 2 specialized trainers that have a significant background in human rights training, there's so much interaction with the operators because that is the largest group that is dealing with individuals on the road. I'm not sure how well it would be received, but we are looking at doing online refresher training through human rights and mutual respect, which is a much more condensed, but where we have that 4-hour training, it encompasses another 4 hours of refresher training of the SOPs and the AODA. There's a fair bit of training, but this one, our operators really want the in-person because they have questions. They want to know, sort of going back to what you had mentioned earlier, like what happens when there's a violation? How are we dealing with those customers? That type of thing. There's a lot of exchange.
But certainly we're continuing to do more things online, and that is something we're moving to. But that one, right now, that it's so important for the operators to have that face to face.
Yes, to what degree does, through the chair, to what degree does our sort of training program in human rights apply to our contract partners? Not just the Voyago, but also the personnel who screen incoming hats.
Through the chair, our training is not provided to Voyago. They would do their own training as part of their contract. Our training it was built in-house with members of the ATU, members of management, and members of health and safety. So our training is also very specific to this work environment. So my understanding through the service provider, part of their contract, they have to go through their own training.
To what degree could our contract, because I've read the contract, to what degree could our contract be enhanced? This is gonna go back to the RFP, isn't it? But it's a human relations question, so it's sort of like, I've received a lot of complaints from people about the treatment that they receive from Voyago.
Our staff, okay, so if it's sorry.
Yeah, it's the question is, again, we would have to refer that to legal because we need to be ensured that we're maintaining a contractor relationship versus an employer-employee. We do specify in the contract the expectations with respect to, the elements that their employees need to go through training. So again, we can look at that and we can bring it back, but we would want to have legal input on that.
And through the chair, our staff here that do the call taking and the dispatching, they have obviously had all of our training.
I have no concerns about that. I'm worried about your
The drivers.
well, the drivers and that anybody involved in that service.
Can we bring this to a future discussion?
Yes, and the other question, which I suspect we'll have to bring to a future discussion, is same question with respect to the personnel in the agencies who screen for our ads.
Perhaps let's bring that to a future discussion.
Well, I just like to know if this
Or
is something
indicated
that you
that the
can.
training is provided to LTC staff only, so they have already answered that. So let's have that as a future discussion.
So would that be an item that I would put on a future agenda?
All right, any other items for the dates and results? Seeing none, we're going to seconder, so I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, item 13, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe in the interest of time, I'll cover on my usual long-winded talk about everyone's favorite report here at the commission meetings. I think the report in itself details all of the changes that are highlighted from our previous meeting that we held. There is one item that has come up that's not in the report, just for your information, that we were aware of a significant detour this weekend for the Canadian Legion for the biennial convention parade. It's going to impact about 11 routes in the downtown road, and that's happening on this Sunday. So we're aware, and we'll have planned detours, but it will have a significant impact being that it's in the four. And I think just for time purposes, if there's any questions, we'll have to ask about what's in the balance of the report.
Great. Thank you for that information, and we'll get a motion on the floor to receive this communication by Commissioner Robbins, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins. Any questions on the road construction update?
Yeah, just following the latest on Sunday, how is that advertised to the public that the routes will be affected?
And through the chair, that's on the info web.
Okay, that's just any place.
Yes. Through the chair, we have also put up advance notice signs at all of the stops to indicate to passengers that these stops will be closed and where to go to catch the bus during that time period. It's expected to be about an hour where the routes will be impacted.
And to follow up on that, just a quick question, does Google get updated, or would it still run the routes that way?
So through the chair, they do put up notices about it. It will still show the routing the same way, but it does have a notice that there is a detour when the actual detour is in effect.
Great questions on the side. Okay, then I'll call the vote. All in favor of receiving? or what's up, and any opposed, that carries. And, last item, back to.
Yeah, I'll be brief, but staff report number 14 is similar to the one discussed earlier, but we do break out conventional and specialized. So a few of the key variances are highlighted with details on the ridership, et cetera, in the second table, but I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Again, mover and seconder to note file, Commissioner Hopkins, Commissioner Lehman, any questions on that item? Comments? Seeing none, then I will call the vote, all in favor? And any opposed? One, that carries.
Oh, no, I was in favor of that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I
Okay,
just-
I was quick.
Yeah.
Good. All right, so that's everything. So then, the date of the next meeting is Monday, June 23rd at 9 a.m. And we will probably double check that. We'll make sure, bring on and off work, so that's great. And I just want to thank everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to be chair. So if you have any feedback for me as my first time hearing frequencies, very welcome that from anybody in the room. As well, following some of the discussion items, if you do have any motions you'd like to have circulated in advance, please feel free to email staff and to email the secretary as well, if you want them just on the agenda, whether you know, or also circulated to everyone so you can review them in advance, that would be super helpful. And a reminder that there's numerous events coming up in the next 2 months related to various celebrations, so make sure that you have those in your calendars to get some more information out. Other than that, I will call for a motion to adjourn, moved by Lehman, seconded by Commissioner Rahman, all in favor? And that carries. All right, thank you, everyone.